So hello, everyone, and welcome to this training, which is developing partnerships to support your ARPA project. Today, we will get the chance to go over different ways that you can develop partnerships to support your ARPA project. We'll talk about potential barriers that you might find as you go about trying to develop different partnerships. And then we'll also discuss some different resources that we can provide you with as you go through trying to develop partnerships. So let's get into it. First, I want to go ahead and do a quick review of what the Prince William County ARPA Community Grant Program is and what the Alliance's role is in managing it. So just as a reminder, the Human Services Alliance of Greater Prince William is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are a membership-based association of traditional and non-traditional human services providers in the Greater Prince William area. And what we are doing with this program is we are working with Prince William County government to administer ARPA funding. And so we'll use the term ARPA throughout the course of this presentation. And for those who might just need a refresher, that does stand for the American Rescue Plan Act, abbreviated as ARPA. And it also has another technical term more specifically for the funding within the act that is used to administer human services funding to local communities. And so we will also break down what that is, because you might see that used interchangeably, but it all just basically means the federal funding that the government has passed down to do COVID relief. And so this is what our role is as the Alliance in administering these funds. We distribute the funds, we track the spending, we make sure that the spending is in compliance with what the county has stipulated, and as well as with what the Commonwealth of Virginia and the federal government have stipulated for these federal funding sources. And then we also provide technical assistance for reporting. Those of you all who have been with us since April as our grant partners know that we have had quite a fun experience trying to do all of this, and we're learning as you all are learning. So thank you for your patience with that aspect of it. But we provide things like technical assistance, compliance monitoring. We make sure that we can provide you all with capacity building training, which is something that we're really, really excited to get more into as we progress with our time together in this grant program. When we ask you all in your monthly reports what barriers you're encountering, what challenges you might be finding. We then take that to go and then customize different types of learning opportunities for you and networking opportunities and different types of events. So we're really excited to be bringing you all some of those coming up very soon. And then the other things that we do as part of our role in administering ARPA funding and managing this program and directing this program is that we get to really help to connect you all to other community resources. So in addition to helping to connect you all to each other, and then to connect you all to resources that might be able to help you address any issues that you might be having, we're also looking forward to connecting you to the larger community of service providers. And so we will get into how we will do that a little bit later. So the next thing that I want to make sure that we go over is how individual projects tie into the overall program objectives for the ARPA Community Grant Program and then for the ARPA program on a federal level. So these are the objectives that you may be familiar with that the Department of Treasury at the federal level has stipulated would be required in terms of using this funding if you're going to address COVID-19 recovery. And so it's to fight the pandemic itself. So actually people who might be getting sick from that, people who may have had negative health outcomes as a result of contracting COVID-19, but then also to support people and businesses that were negatively impacted financially from the pandemic and its corresponding shutdowns. So a lot of times when you hear things like ARPA thrown around, it might be in a really, really big sense, like a community that's addressing their water system or their road infrastructure or some other aspect of recovery, building a hospital, building a clinic. And then other times you might see it how our community is using it where it's more directly impacting families. And so even some communities are using it to fight crime and they're investing in their law enforcement, or they might be using it to develop different forms of equity as it pertains to social justice. one of the things that this pandemic did is it revealed 1,000,001 different areas where our communities could use improvement. And so as many different areas as were revealed to have been, a symptom of larger issues going on within our community, is as many different ways as those communities have decided to use this funding. And so how we have decided to use it is really to address the economic impacts and the behavioral and mental health impacts that the pandemic has had on individual households. And so just as a reminder, what we're doing specifically, how we're using our funds is to assist households that have been impacted and disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And so the federal definition of what impact it looks like, will provide that for you, as well as what it looks like to be disproportionately impacted. But for households that have just been impacted, that includes doing things like providing navigation support to other community resources, helping with things like employment support, providing emergency shelter, childcare, utilities assistance, and then different ways of supporting hunger relief efforts. And as it pertains to people that have been impacted by the health components of it, it's helping with behavioral and mental health in a variety of different ways. And then when we say a household that has been impacted versus disproportionately impacted, impacted is just pretty much anybody in the Prince William County area that is low to moderate income, up to 300% of the federal poverty level. And then people that have been experiencing unemployment or food insecurity. Those are households that have deemed to be impacted. And then households that have deemed to be disproportionately impacted are those that are located within qualified census tracts. Because, it's been said that people who are economically disadvantaged, tend to get pneumonia when everybody else in the country gets the flu because of what's going on with the economy. And so we definitely saw that that was the case with the pandemic as well. And just as a reminder, and why I'm reminding you all of this, it's because every different municipality, different governments that have accessed ARPA funding, they're all able to use their ARPA funding as they see fit. So there is a basic level of program requirements and eligibility that people who are benefiting from these funds have to meet, and that's pretty much displayed on the slide. And then there are other types of eligibility requirements or different program requirements or different focus areas that counties and cities and different types of tribal governments and municipalities can put on top of those restrictions. And I want to make sure I highlight that, because a partnership that you might have to support an ARPA project that you might be administering in another county or in another city may not be able to translate to what you do in Prince William County if Prince William County's rules are a little bit stricter than maybe what you might have elsewhere. And likewise, if you have restrictions that have been placed on you by another municipality that have not been placed on you by Prince William County's focus areas, then you might find that, oh, okay, we actually do have a little bit more flexibility to partner than we thought. So I just wanted to highlight that. And so this is how you can see even more so how your project really does feed into the overall network of what's going on with these COVID relief dollars. So when the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act was signed, the legislation was signed in March 2021, what happened next was that it passed down $1.9 trillion in a stimulus package. And so we saw some of that passed out in the form of stimulus checks that were assisting individual households. Some people were able to use that money to support their businesses, a whole bunch of different things people were able to do with that. And so more than $350 billion of that went directly to states, counties, cities, and tribal governments. That's why you might have heard about an ARPA project on a state level. You might have heard one on a county level. There might be some more that are even specific to neighborhoods and different communities in neighborhoods. It really all just kind of depended on what those groups wrote their ARPA funding proposals for, their project proposals for, when they wrote to the federal government and what they were awarded. So Prince William County, of that $1.9 trillion, received CSLFRF, which is just another fancy word for ARPA funding, that was specific to helping out in this way, where you could make grants from it. You could kind of use it to customize what it was that the COVID-19 recovery work would need to look like in this community. So of that, $91,000 and some change has been allocated to Prince William County government. Of that amount, so far, the county has received a little bit more than 45 million of that. And of that 45 million, they have allocated 10 million to the Alliance. And so when you think about what your project is doing, there's a lot of interest in this program because it really is about a fourth of what the allocation was that came down so far from the federal government to the county, is going directly to the Alliance's partners and programs. And so sometimes you might hear us say, oh, there's a lot more interest, in this ARPA program than there was in our other programs where we had federal funding, or even similar community grant programs where the funds might have been crowdsourced. And that's because this is a really big percentage of what the county overall has gotten, and then of course has most recently gotten to date. And so of that $10 million, we have you all, we have our grant partners that have received grant awards up to $300,000 of that. So if you look at it, it really does trickle down, but if you were to reverse this all the way back up, you can see where your specific projects and how you administer your funds go into the overall success that the county has with their ARPA money, that the state will have, and that the federal government will ultimately have with this ARPA money. So that being said, your project success extends far beyond your organization and this point in time. And so I want you, for those of you all who are visual, to follow this visual aid of a puzzle and a piece of the puzzle. So you all are providing a piece of the puzzle. Your project, the work that you do, the reports that you submit, the outcomes that you all achieve are just one piece of this puzzle. When you look at the success of the overall ARPA Community Grant Program in Prince William County, it's going to be judged by how well each of your programs do, how well each of your projects do, and how you all are able to spend your money, how you're able to report on it, the impact that you have on the households that you serve. If one of you doesn't do well, it really does reflect on the other 32 partners. So no pressure, but just want to make you aware that, if there's one partner that is struggling in a certain area, it's not like people are going to look at the other 32 partners and be like, oh, well, the overall program is a success. They always look at the program that struggles the most. It's just kind of human nature. Our mind and our eyes tend to gravitate to the one that needed a little bit more help. And so that's just kind of a thought that you have, and it's not to be intimidating. It's not to be frightening or threatening or scary. It's just to kind of put into perspective how the work that you do doesn't only just impact how your organization might be viewed or your project might be viewed. It also really does impact how the ARPA Community Grant Program as a whole is viewed. And public perception is super important because these are tax dollars that are being used, and this money is voted on by the Board of County Supervisors. And so when they see the project is being successful, they will then, look to duplicate this type of a project in the future, which is what we saw happen with our CARES community grant program. In 2020, we had $3 million of COVID-19 relief money that we partnered with the county to spend. And because those grant partners did a really exceptional job of reporting on things timely, making sure everything was spent in compliance, making sure that when we got audited and monitored, there were no findings at all, that, everything was good. So then the county felt comfortable partnering with us again a year later to do $10 million, which is more than 3 times the amount that they initially partnered with us to do. And so what our goal is to just keep building on the successes that we have had as a community, and being able to show our government partners like, hey, you can actually put federal money in the hands of nonprofits to do the work that needs to be done in these communities. And it's going to get done, and it's going to get done well and effectively and efficiently and to the best that anyone could do it. So that's our goal when you think about what your project's role is in the overall bigger puzzle piece and in the big picture of how federal money gets trickling down, how it gets trickled down and transferred to households that need it the most. And then I also want you all, for those of you all who are visual, to think about a water droplet and all of the little ripples that come away from when you drop a drop of water into a pool of water. And that is that even in the second that is dropped, the nanosecond that that droplet hits the water, there are ripples that can go on and on and on and on until they just, you can't tell how far they're going anymore. And that is because, like we said, your project is going to transcend beyond what you're doing in this moment, what you're going to do between now and 2024. If you are an organization that is struggling with your project and you don't let us help you, you don't reach out to other groups to help, there are a lot of people who have a lot of interest in this program. They're going to see if you get awarded a certain amount of money and are unable to spend your money, or that you're unable to meet the objectives that you plan to meet. Everything that we do is public information. We do have to report on the outcomes that you all will be achieving. And so we do that at the different points throughout this grant cycle and throughout the next grant cycle. And even when we get to 2024, it's the end of the grant program. So we try not to provide any information that would be embarrassing to the public. If those of you all who might struggle, are having challenges, we don't want to provide any information like that. However, what people will be able to see is if you were awarded $300,000 and we're only able to spend $20,000, or if you purported that you would be able to serve, 20,000 program participants, and then when it's all said and done, maybe you serve like 60. Numbers don't lie. So there are ripples to what even your public perception is if you have a tough time and you're not able to make your project a success. And again, I don't say that to scare you or to sound cruel or to be cavalier about what the realities that our nonprofit groups are facing, that our faith-based groups are facing in this season. But just to say, if there is any way that we can help you, please let us help you, because we don't want your experience with this program to be a negative reflection of your organization as a whole or the work that you do, because you all are doing really awesome work. So, all right. The good news is, if I have sufficiently frightened you, I didn't mean to, but there's great news. And one of the really, really great points about all of this is that you don't have to struggle. We have given you all the first 6 months or so. We're not quite at 6 months, but the first few months we wanted to just let you all administer your programs as you propose to, without having to feel as though you have a lot of expectations from us as your grant funders, a lot of things that you would be required to attend or go to, or different requirements placed on your reporting. We really just wanted you all to get your programs up and running and out of the door and get used to spending and reporting and all that other good stuff. But one way that you can really make sure that you have a successful program is by partnering. And you can ensure that your project will be, thriving and healthy and reaching as many people as it, possibly could. And that is through establishing partnerships that are not only just partnerships in name only, but that are strategic, that are collaborative, and that are mutually beneficial. And so we also want to go ahead and make sure that we clearly state what our stance is on partnership development, not only between grant partners, but also between other entities. And that is that we think they're great. We totally think you should do them. Let us know how we can help you. We would love to help you. At the same time, We also want to make sure that we state that we are not going to force you to develop any other community partnerships. We don't feel like that is our role. And what best practices have taught us, not only as grant makers, but also just in philanthropy in general, is when nonprofits and when faith-based groups and people who are receiving funding from an entity feel as though they are forced to develop a partnership, and it's not organic, and it's not really what they want to be doing, then what tends to happen is those partnerships fail. And it actually is more of a detriment to the overall work that you all are seeking to do. If you're chucking along, you don't have any issues, you don't see where you need to develop additional partnerships. Maybe you've already developed a lot of partnerships. That's fine and dandy, and that's great. And keep doing what you're doing. If you find that there's another group that comes on and maybe developing a partnership with them might be a hindrance to you, it might be a detriment to you, then be really thoughtful about if you want to enter into that type of a partnership. Our stance is the more you all can work together, the better it is. You're just strengthening the work that you do. You're, enhancing the people that you can reach. We know that one organization cannot serve everyone. That's not even realistic. That's not what our expectation is at all. So if you all can form bonds that will help you to have further impact and maximize your efforts, then we really think that's great. That's awesome. But we're not going to make you do anything. We're not going to make people partner with you. If you want to partner with somebody and they don't want to partner with you, and you call us and say they don't want to partner with me, we're just going to tell you, look elsewhere, try something else, take another approach, because it is not our role to force people to develop partnerships, and we're not going to. So now let's go into the basics of partnership development. The basics that we know, what the building blocks are to just even have a need for partnership. If you don't have a need for partnership at all that you could possibly think of, then it's just going to be like, okay, we're doing this. Why? But you need to make sure that you even need a partnership in the first place. You want to make sure that you have clarity in terms of who's going to be leading the partnership. In different partnerships, it might be appropriate for people at different levels within organizations to actually be the ones who are directing how that work is done and how that work is conducted. You want to make sure that you have clarity of that leadership. So not only that you have clarity of leadership, that you have an understanding and everybody knows who the point person is doing that work. And then also that you have an understanding. And so that comes from establishing what your shared goals are, how you plan to work, how you're going to monitor your progress and your success, how you're going to do your record keeping and your data management. All of that understanding has to be clarified before you really actually get started on what your partnership is. And then two, you also want to be really mindful of your different cultures and different practices. So we are all different organizations. We all operate differently. We have different program participants that we serve. They may have similarities, but oftentimes it's not exactly the same profile or avatar of a program participant. And so that needs to be respected, understanding that, how I do this and how you do that might be similar. We might have similar objectives, but, we might go about it in different ways. And how can we nurture those differences? Because they seem to be working for both of our groups. And when they're not working, then maybe we can say, you know what? How you do that is actually a lot better. And I'm gonna adopt that. I'm gonna come on board and do it how you do it versus doing it how I might have been doing it before. Having a clear purpose for why you're partnering and for what it is that you're looking to do, being committed to it, and then trusting each other to do what you've committed to do. So that's going to be really important. I know a lot of times there's some hesitancy to develop partnerships because in the past you all may have been competing for resources, or you might feel as though you're in competition for program participants or other issues like that. And so those are things that you're going to have to work out whenever you go to develop what your partnership might look like. And then having clear working arrangements. Where are you going to be working? How are you going to be working? How can people access the services that your groups would be sharing, as well as performance management systems. If you all have one client tracking system and your partner has another, you've got to come up with some kind of way that you can reconcile that. And then two, of course, like we said, exchanging good practices. So what I'm going to do now is put in a link to our Jamboard. Okay, this should be the Jamboard link. Yep. So I'm putting a link to our Jamboard into the chat. So you all should be able to access our Jamboard and answer the first question. And the first question that you have is, can you think of some opportunities to partner? And so we said this would be interactive. Oops, let me back that up. You're not supposed to see that yet. So we said that this would be interactive. So now I'm going to hop over here and start sharing my Jamboard screen so that we can see how this works together. Okay, Google Chrome, share. So the first question that we have is, can you think of some opportunities to partner? And you all let me know if you cannot access this. I don't see anybody writing yet, but how this works, I'll just demonstrate. Is you come over here to the sticky note and you grab it and you put it there. There it is. And you just start writing. So let's see, an opportunity to partner might be that I could think of, might be, I don't know, referrals. And then you just save it. Okay, so someone said that they have view only. So let me make sure that I have given you the right view. You should have, oh, duh, editor. Let's try this now. Anyone with the link can get it. So let me drop this in the chat. And thank you so much for letting me know that. And someone else said that they can't actually see my screen, which is important to know. So now let me try to share my screen again. Okay, can you guys see now? Yes, okay, great. Thank you, thank you. So I'm gonna give you all a few minutes to write some ideas, and I'm just gonna start organizing our stickies. And if anyone is having any types of issues as it pertains to writing in the Jamboard, any of that good stuff, then please let me know. How do I grab a sticky note? You hover over this little menu here, and then you just press down on it, and you don't do what I'm telling you to do. You just click it. You don't have to drag it over. You just click it. So to grab a sticky, you just click it and start writing. And again, you come over here to this menu. You click where it says sticky note. It kind of looks like a Post-it. And you click it and you start writing. And you don't have to choose a yellow sticky. Shout out to whoever is the first person to get a sticky that's not yellow. I go with yellow because I just do. You don't have to feel obligated to have a yellow sticky. And I'm going to give you another couple of minutes or so. And then, yeah, we'll discuss. And so your question is, can you think of opportunities to partner? Something on my, something is beeping over here. All right, that's fine. Okay. And so you all can continue to write in there if you'd like. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, my PowerPoint screen. So that we can get into the rest of this. Okay, so in terms of ways that you can partner, here are just some of the ways that you can partner. You can have a financial partnership. So what that might mean, and I'll just give you all some examples of a few of these, is if you have a project that is focused on navigation. Maybe the core of your project is navigation, or maybe the core of your project is doing food admin or mental health counseling, for instance. And that is what it is that you do. That's your niche. That's your area of expertise, maybe that case management side. And you find that one of your program participants really needs a direct service. Maybe they need to be able to go back to school and they need help paying for a certification, or perhaps they need utility assistance. Something that you can do is develop a partnership with another ARPA grant partner or any other organization that is providing, the service that is needed. And the exchange can be that you will refer your program participant to that program for that individual to financially assist your program participant. And so in that case, it might just be that really is kind of a partnership where it's both a referral and then also a financial partnership, because the money is not being exchanged between the partner organizations. It's going to the benefit of the end recipient. And so what that might look like is if I have a food pantry and I've been coordinating services for that food pantry, and someone comes and says, hey, I have someone and they need help accessing their mental health medication, I'm going to make this referral to a group that does the financial support of purchasing a prescription to support behavioral health. That might be a perfect example where the initial organization that the program participant came to is not expending any money. There's no money being exchanged. They're not having to write any checks. How they are assisting their program participant is by making that referral to someone who can financially support what that program participant needs. And how that would be documented and reported is that organization A that initially made the contact because they had the food pantry, or they were doing the mental health counseling, or they were doing the navigation, they get to count that as someone who they served because they helped them with all of the services that they provide. And then organization B, that is going to be the one that is actually paying for that prescription or paying that utility bill or paying for that class or that course or that certification, that license, whatever the work support might look like, that uniform. Then they also get to count that as a program participant who was served because they are the ones who actually made the payment on that individual's behalf to support them. So you can develop a partnership like that. With any type of partnership that you develop, you definitely want to make sure that you have a memorandum of understanding that really can just be as formal or informal as you'd like for it to be. I'll send you all some templates as part of your toolkits that will show you that it basically just says organization A agrees to identify program participants and then make referrals, and organization B agrees to pay for the financial assistance or whatever it is that they do. That's going to help the program participant. For people who are referred who meet the eligibility requirements. Because ARPA is a unique type of a program and it has unique eligibility requirements, there is really a lot of overlap in terms of what all of our ARPA grant partners are doing. And so you can vet somebody, you can see what someone else is doing, and yeah, it's going to make a lot of sense for you to partner where you can and to really be able to see where those partnerships might make sense for you. Something else that you might find is that you could have networks of funded subcontractors. So we have a number of our ARPA grant partners who are doing capital projects. You all are doing projects where you're building things onto your building. You're constructing things onto your building. Maybe it's a walk-in freezer. Maybe you're purchasing large items to support your food endeavors, your feeding programs. If you have found a really, really great contractor to help you, then that's information that you can share with other groups. So we know that there are a limited amount of contractors who do great work. If you feel like, you had a really great experience with someone and you wanted to refer them to someone else who has a similar project to you, then that would be a really great partnership to have, just to say, hey, I'm not taking any responsibility for the work that they do, but this contractor did a really great job for us, or this vendor was a really good vendor for us. We bought our freezer unit from them and, we haven't had any issues. Customer service is great, so on and so forth. Something else that you can think about in terms of an opportunity to partner would be to have your co-locations or shared administrative costs. So we have different groups that are serving different folks in the county with different things, but some of you all are doing similar things. So maybe some of you all are doing case management, or you're meeting with people, or you're doing navigation services. If you have an office that's in a centrally located location, and maybe your office space is half full and you're paying the cost for rent and utilities and to have a front desk person and to have phones connected there, it would make sense if you were to partner with another ARPA partner who could help to offset some of those costs. So maybe if you have a half full office and another ARPA partner has a half full office, you guys could move in together and then share those resources. So you could share things like your front desk person, or you might be able to do something like, I pay for the rent if you pay for the utilities and our phone service, or anything like that. Or, you pay for the copier and I pay for this. However you'd want to do that would be fine. And as long as you're clearly documenting what you're paying for, you're receiving what purchases you make, that would be an eligible expense and an allowable expense, because you all would be serving the same ARPA population. So now when we're talking about making sure that you're sharing resources, that you're sharing locations, things like that, you'd have to be really, really clear that you are exclusively serving ARPA program participants when you're doing this work. So this couldn't really be something where you're moving into somebody's office and maybe they're using half their time to do, some other program, some other project from some other funding source. But for those of you all who are setting up offices exclusively to do ARPA work for ARPA people, ARPA eligible households, that might be something to consider. And then also we have the opportunities, not we so much as the Alliance, but we as different funding sources across the United States of America, where we put out different requests for proposals. And when we do this, when other, foundations do this, when other entities that are doing grant making do this, they love to see collaborative partnerships. They like to see strategic partnerships. So it might be something where you might decide that you want to apply for a grant and say, hey, we have another partner that is serving ARPA families and ARPA households that does really similar work. Why don't we combine our efforts to apply for this grant funding opportunity? And not only does it strengthen the likelihood that you would get that, but it also strengthens your capacity to administer any other grants that you might have. And like I said, just a reminder, you want to make sure that whatever work that you're doing, if it's not exclusive to ARPA, that you fund that from some other source. But now once you get that funding, you could have some other people on your team within your organization who are not being funded by ARPA dollars, who are not being, have their salary or their pay covered by ARPA to work on that program. And then that program could be a support to your ARPA project. So other things that you could do are just kind of listed below, how you might form informal networks. You might decide that, hey, all of us are seeing the same barrier to accessing services for our program participants. Maybe we should come up with some type of work group or a coalition, or maybe we need to just come up with some type of advocacy effort. Any of those things that you would want to do, again, as long as you're not using your ARPA money to organize or do any of that stuff that you're not supposed to be doing with it, then you are more than welcome to just combine your efforts, because you really do have very similar program participants. So participating in different types of community councils might be a way that you can really get more people to know about your ARPA project, develop partnerships where people can make referrals or can help you do recruitment. And then also any types of trainings that you can do that can be reciprocal. So if you have an organization that can provide community training and then you have program participants that can benefit from that, that might be something that you'd like to form a partnership around. And then of course, to do warm handoffs. So sometimes when you're dealing with people that are vulnerable in some way or another, or people that have had different challenges that your ARPA project is seeking to address, whether that's mental health, or maybe they've been a victim of some type of trauma, they've survived some type of trauma, or maybe they're vulnerable in some other way. It really can even help if you say, I'm not only making this referral, but I'm going to take you to this office to meet with this case manager, or I'm going to get on Zoom with you, so that when you're going through their intake process, that might be something that, you know, is a little bit less intimidating. So just food for thought. So here is a list of some potential partners beyond who you might normally think of. So in addition to you forming partnerships with your fellow ARPA grant recipients, you can have partnerships with all types of people in our community. So not only just, you know, who we typically think of, but other types of community-based organizations and different entities, different government agencies. There is nothing that prohibits you from forming a relationship with a government agency. It's just, if they want to partner with you, you can partner with them. Okay, so back to our Jamboard. And so this question is, what are some barriers that may keep a partnership from being successful? And so with this, I'm going to start sharing my screen again. Come back to my Jamboard. You all should be able to see this sticky note. And so, yeah, you guys put some really, really great things in here. Some of these things we discussed already. For the ones that we didn't discuss yet, opportunities to partner, definitely reaching out to everyone. We will make sure that you will have everybody's contact information after this presentation, after this webinar. But then also, you know, anything else that we didn't cover, let's see. Similar areas of programming, yes. Knowing other partner services and constituents and finding mutual grounds, yes, yes. And then helping to introduce people to other agencies that serve similar people, yes, we can help with that, and we will help you all with that. Having a public event to inform the community and grab a lot of media, we're on the same page. So these are all some different ways to partner. And now the next question that we have, and you guys, if you want to skip ahead and start filling this out while we're talking, that's fine too. The next question is, what are some barriers that might keep a partnership from being successful? So if you can think about some barriers, you come over here, you click on the sticky. Again, let me know if your sticky isn't working. One of the things we said might be trust. And I'm going to do a green sticky this go around. So if trust is a barrier, what are some other barriers that you can think of that might keep a partnership from being successful? And this can be experiences that you may have had firsthand, and maybe even some that you might have seen from other collaborative partnerships that didn't quite go as well. So let's take another minute or two to think about some barriers that may keep a partnership from being successful.
Chelsea, is this a different link or the same one? I just see the same board.
It should be the same link. Somebody was able to write on here, but so it should be, if you click back on that same link I put in the chat, it should bring you here. But let me know if you need me to drop that link again, because I can.
Okay, it's just when I click on that, it's just the same one that we already did. Opportunities to partner.
You may have to click up here to the next frame. I'm not sure if when I advance, it automatically advanced for you all on your end.
Right, you have to click it.
Okay, so just click right up here in the center. there's like a next arrow. And so if you click the next arrow, it should bring up the question about barriers that might keep a partnership from being successful. And let me
All
know
right.
if it doesn't work.
Got it. Thank you.
You're super welcome. Also, if anybody is having any issues, you can always put your comment in the chat. I wanted to do this so that you all would be able to write anonymously for those of you who don't always feel comfortable putting stuff in the chat where it can be attributed to you again. You can look at it from here. Okay, so now let's discuss this. Trust, turf issues, a lack of relationship management experience. Yeah, sometimes everybody's not great at making new friends. Not having clear partnership goals, not having time to coordinate. Yeah, that's a real one. Sometimes when we're, neck deep in our work, it's hard to find other times to really think about the work that we could be doing on our programs because we're so busy working in our programs. And then not having clear expectations for each partner. All of those could really be barriers for the success of our program. So now let's look at a few more. And again, if you would like to go ahead and drop that in there, then you can continue to do so while we're talking. And so now we are back in here. So here are some other barriers that we can see. And so just a few of these that are common in partnership that maybe aren't as successful is when one partner manipulates or dominates or competes to be the lead. So it's really important that when we're developing partnerships that they be mutually beneficial, and mutually beneficial has to be determined by both of you all as to what that's going to look like. So sometimes if one of the partners is more forward facing, there might be some resentment if they're the ones who are getting out there doing the outreach and the recruitment, and maybe they get a little bit more shine or more publicity than the one that is kind of on the back end doing the work once that program participant has been handed off. So you guys really have to think about how you're going to handle that. How are you going to feel about that? Do you want to have all of the promotional material that you make co-branded, where maybe it says this is a collaboration between this group and this group to do this thing, so that anytime someone is seeing your work out in the community, they know that it's actually an effort between two of you. Sometimes there's a lack of understanding about who's doing what within the partnership. It's like, wait a minute, I was supposed to be doing the recruitment. I thought you were doing the recruitment. Sometimes it might be something where there is limited vision or where there's lack of support from a partner organization that has the decision-making power. So we are not naive to the fact that different organizations have different resources and have different power. And the power dynamics at play may not be super fair. All of those are things that you all really need to be honest about, not only with yourselves, but also with your partners as you guys are developing your relationship. What is that going to look like? What does it look like in terms of you all building relationships with each other when you're going to work? So if trust is an issue, or if you guys just don't really know each other that well, are you going to schedule some team building events? You're going to go on a ropes course? How are you going to make that work to where you feel comfortable partnering with your partner? And then also, key interest people that are missing from the partnership. And then if there's an unacceptable balance of power, something else to think about is, we mentioned before that some groups have had to compete, whether it's for funding or for staffing or for program participants or for physical space. And there might be some resentment that's left over from that. Is that something that you can work through? Is that something that you just will never get over ever, no matter what? Can you come together for the support of this particular project, even if maybe you also have beef in some other areas? Those are all things to think about, but these are very real barriers to developing successful partnerships. And, any one of these can totally derail your working relationship. So it's really important not to just discount the fact that if one of your partners, or if a couple of members of your teams here, or a couple of members of your teams there are experiencing any one of these, it really can impact how well your partnership does. And so we have some resources for you all that can teach you how to overcome that. A few more barriers might be having hidden agendas. So maybe if there's an agenda to sneak and, find out what you can find out, what kind of dirt you can find out about your partner so that you can use it against them later, that's not the kind of partnership that you want to have. If you're not communicating well, if you don't have a process to evaluate how well your work is going, your project is going, if you don't learn from mistakes that you might make, or you are having a partnership in which you're looking to share best practices and the other group doesn't really seem to be all that receptive to learning those. If it becomes overwhelming, one of the individuals on the Jam board said that, there's just no time to coordinate this stuff. So if you were to enter into a partnership and not have any time to nurture it, that is not going to be all that great for your partnership. So yeah, all things to think about. And then your last Jamboard activity, and again, some of you all already shared kind of like what it was that you all wanted for the Alliance to do and some ideas that you have. Oh, okay. Here's another one before we move off of that. Someone added, since we were last on here, that government agencies will not officially partner oftentimes. And how can you get government agencies that have restrictions on official partnerships to work with you? And so one way that you can do that is have informal partnerships. And you can count an informal partnership the same way, you could count a formal one. So maybe they can't officially be a referral partner to you. But I mean, we all know case managers who will call us up and say, hey, I have someone who has this issue. Do you know of anyone who can help? And that's an informal partnership that you have with them. Maybe it's an informal relationship where you guys are cross-promoting each other's work. They might send you brochures and flyers about an initiative they have, and then maybe they'll let you display some stuff in their lobby. There are all types of different ways that you can partner besides ways that maybe traditionally you might have thought of before that were formal. I have a formal MOU. You have formally joined my coalition. You have formally joined this association. They may not be able to do that. And so if they're not able to do that, how can you work with them? Is it just information sharing? Is it just going to be referrals? Is it just going to be a warm handoff? Will they let you reserve some time on their calendar so that you can have some of your program participants who can, kind of expedite the appointment getting process? What is that going to look like? And then something else someone said that might be barrier is different partner eligibility requirements in addition to what your grant protocol is. And that's a very real, that's a real barrier. If you're serving this really niche group, or if your group has requirements that other groups don't have, then it might just be something where you have to form a relationship with those folks that says, you all serve all of the people who you can serve. And those 2 or 3, maybe out of 100 that you have that are also going to be eligible for my program, let me serve them. You serve everybody else who you can serve. I'll refer people to you so that you can serve all the folks with whatever funding you have and a funding source that maybe isn't as restrictive. And for the ones who I can serve, let me serve those people. So you may not get every one of their program participants, but if you can get the ones that you all have a common and shared eligibility protocol for, then that could work. And I think we covered the rest of these, but if we didn't, please forgive me. And so for the next one, what can the Alliance do to help your organization develop partnerships? So keep a list of ongoing needs of partners, like position openings or needs. Absolutely, we can do that. Organize a working event where all the partners come together to meet with each other and brainstorm ways to partner with each other. We could do that too. So if you all think of any other ways that the Alliance can help, please take a moment to put this here. And I'm going to go back to, while you guys fill this out, I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint so that we can go ahead and keep this moving. Okay. So something else I wanted to give you all the chance to do, and you don't have to put this in the Jamboard. This is something I actually wanted for those of y'all who feel comfortable speaking. If you'd like to verbally share, then you can share any experiences you have regarding developing partnerships for your ARPA project, any success stories you have, any challenges you might have had that you haven't already included in the Jamboard, or just anything that you'd like to share with your fellow ARPA grant partners, then you can go ahead and put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself now. Oh, Angela's hand is raised. I'm going to have to make you guys big again so I can acknowledge you. Okay. Please unmute yourself, Angela.
Hi. Yeah, I would just like to say we're having great success with the other ARPA service providers that received this grant. We sent out an email asking what their services are with regards to this grant, so we can, and just in general as well, so we get an understanding of what they're doing in the community, what they're doing with this grant. And they sent us, I mean, we had probably at least a third to a half respond back to us. We're the Northern Virginia Veterans Association, and tell us what they did, gave us a different brochures on those particular projects so we could like add them to our resource list. So that was really helpful. And in exchange, we talked to them about the vulnerable veteran population that we helped. And if they have any veterans that need additional services, please refer them to us. And because we're the vulnerable veteran population niche, we definitely, come across many of them that are at 300% of the poverty level or lower, and are in those areas of Prince William County. And yeah, we just had a wonderful share with a lot of them. And if someone didn't get the email, they can absolutely, email us back. And the one thing I ask people to do on their intakes, if they want to see if they're actually working with veterans, is just to ask if their person has ever served in the military. And that could open up a whole bunch of benefits and resources they didn't even realize were available. So even if it's not us they coordinate with, at least if they know that, they can help them.
Oh, that's a really awesome story. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. And I think that, sometimes we do tend to have missed opportunities upon intake. And the more thorough your intake can be, you can find other avenues where you might be able to serve someone. And just as a point too, I want to remind you all that the intake that you have for the Alliance and for what we require for ARPA is the bare minimum of the intake that you have to do for this funding. And so I know it's right at about 3. So if anybody has to hop off, please feel free to do so. Like I said, we will be recording this. And so, yeah, we'll make sure that you get this. But for everybody else who has decided that they're able to stay on, we're just going to give anyone else who has a question or who has an experience or who has a success story or a challenge that they'd like to share the opportunity to do that. And then we'll keep going, and then we'll be wrapping this up very soon. So does anyone else, thank you so much, Angela. Does anybody else have any type of experience that they would like to share as it pertains to developing partnerships with their projects? And if not, that's fine. And I'm just going to keep going. If you think of something else, please put it in the chat. I'm going to minimize you guys again so I can see. Okay, so now here are some resources that can help. We have an ARPA grant partner contacts list. So we'll send that to you all and make sure that you have each other's contact information. One thing I will say about the contact list is the contact list is specific to the project administrators. And so the people who we communicate with in regards to things like reporting or in regards to things like when it's time to make a grant disbursement, those are not always the same people who are working most closely with your actual projects. So there are people who are kind of responsible for the program administration, the project administration end of it, and then the people who might actually be interacting with the families and households and individuals that are in need. And so for that, we have another listing, and the project listing is that forward-facing listing that we have that is for people who would be seeking services. So the first one that we're going to send you really is more so for if you wanted to coordinate partnership discussions, if you have questions about the administration of these ARPA funding, initiatives that you all have in your projects, and then how you all might be able to build on those partnerships. But then the second one is what you will need to share with your program participants. So we have that listing of the preferred ways that you all told us you would like for the public to contact you to schedule things like visits to a food pantry, or to schedule an appointment to apply for utility assistance, or a navigation appointment or childcare, or whatever the thing might be. But so those are the two differences in that list, and we will specify them when we send them out, which ones go with which information you can share with your program participants, and with the contact list that we really would rather you just keep in-house for just you all who are going to be administering this funding. We'll also go ahead and send you toolkits and resource guides that go much more in depth about developing partnerships, evaluating the partnerships you already have, and then also what even your organization's readiness is to go ahead and develop partnerships. Some of y'all don't need to be partnering with people just yet. And so if that's your reality, that's okay. It gives you different areas where you can strengthen your operations, where you might be able to strengthen the projects that you're doing, the work that you're doing, so that you will be ready to partner with people at some point. And then, you know, what a timeline on that might even look like. And then I wanted to go ahead and invite you all to save the dates for these events. And we will be sending you information about these upcoming events as well, not only through Found It, but also through the different platforms that we communicate with you all on via e-newsletter and social media and our website and some different places. But on the 10th of October at 2 p.m. via Zoom, we have a workshop that's open to the public. So all of your staff, your board, your partners can come. Anybody you know who wants to come can come. That's going to be about program planning and development. And that is because some of you all, even within your projects, might have to think through some different ways that you need to develop your partnerships and what that's going to look like operationally and in terms of actually doing that work. And so we want to help you all to think through that, as well as anybody else who's just going to be developing a new program altogether. And then we have another training on the 12th of October that is about program evaluation. And so with that training, it's more about seeing what's working, what's not working, how to benchmark your work, and kind of where you might need to tweak some things as you're going along to ensure that you will have successful programs and projects once the end of this grant funding initiative. When it's over, you can actually see, okay, how are things going? And you don't have to wait until 2024 to do that evaluation process. And then on November the 3rd, we have the Connecting the Dots conference. And the Connecting the Dots conference is going to be an in-person event at George Mason University's Hilton Performing Arts Center. And it's a day-long conference, and it does a lot of the things that you all said you wanted us to do. It introduces your programs and projects to the overall service providers from the greater Prince William area. It gives you all a chance to network, to mingle, to work through some wicked hard subjects that you might be encountering, to talk about the best ways that you all can collaborate, to make new friends. If you are not great at making new friends, we will have that in really structured environments and activities, and then also just some more free-flowing and less formalized and less structured activities for you too. So we're super excited about that. And we will be pushing out some information about how you can register for that. We invite all ARPA partners to come. And then we're not even having it to be exclusive to ARPA partners, but also to Alliance members, to people that are neither, who are just interested in the work that you're doing and how they can partner with you. So we will definitely be sending you information about that. And after that, we will have a partnership challenge, and that is an optional activity for all of the different service providers in our community who would like to participate, to find ways to implement the different things that we covered in this training and that we will cover at the Connecting the Dots conference. So, are there any questions or comments or concerns before we close out? If so, please let me know. And like I said, I'll be sending you all of this information as well as those different resources that I just mentioned. Well, while you all think about any comments you have or questions or anything you want to pop in the chat or unmute yourself for, I do want to remind you all that you can learn about the ARPA Community Grant Project. You can learn about all types of different resources that are available to you. We're constantly updating that page. Let me stop sharing so that I can share it with you guys on the internet. But once you click this link that we have, it's also the same link that you went to find out information about the RFP, to access your found it, grant portal, all that good stuff. Everything's on that page. So you've seen it. I actually won't click on it right now. You can find additional resources for your program management, for administering grants in general. That might help you with some of that good stuff. And then also, let's see, I want to make sure that you all know that we thank you for joining us. You can find us on social media. You can contact us via phone, via email. We're super excited to be working with you. We know that you're going to have successful projects, and we thank you for your time today. And I won't take any more of your time. And so you guys have a wonderful afternoon. I'm going to stay on for a bit for those of you all who have questions or who might like to pop into a breakout room and chat for a moment. If you all would like to go into breakout rooms and chat with each other, if you see other partners on here who you'd like to speak with, then you can do that. And if you want to speak one-on-one with them, then you can use the contact information that we'll be sharing to coordinate a time to connect with them on your own. But thank you all so much, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.